Welcome, everyone. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Accelerate Your Consulting. We're so glad that you've joined us, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or the Giant platform. We're just really glad that you've taken time out to be with us today. It's a great day in the world of Giant. I've got two great men with me today, Chris Ediger and Bronson Taylor. I'll have Chris formally introduce our guest today, but Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's, I've been enjoying the fall weather. You know, when you live in Atlanta, Georgia, you kind of hedge your bets when it starts to get cool. You're thinking, okay, you're fooling us. It's not going to stick around. I think it was way hot into November last year. So it's sticking around. We built a few fires the last week or so. It's been nice.
I feel the same way. I'm a hot girl person myself. I love the summer, but I can deal with a little bit of crisp air. And we had a big bonfire this weekend too, and I just love that smell. I actually love the s'mores. I love the whole deal.
Bronson has the universal weather patterns. It's like every day is everything, right? Except for the cold. You don't get cold.
I'm jealous, Chris, when you talk about, the crisp, cool fall weather. I miss that so much. In Southwest Florida, you just get humidity, and that's it, year round.
Yeah, so we're kind of representing different parts of the U.S. here today. So we've got Naples, Florida with Bronson, and Atlanta, Georgia with Chris, and I'm in smack dab in the middle in Oklahoma City. So we're representing it all. So
that's right. It's a good week to be together. Well, why don't you kind of get the lay of the land for those that maybe haven't joined us before, and then I'll introduce Bronson and we'll get into it. We want to make sure Bronson's got the bulk of the time today to be able to share what we're going to be sharing. So
for those of you who are new, thanks for coming on today. But I'm the director of implementation here at Giant, and then Chris is actually our director of partners. That's why he is the man of the half hour during this time. Chris is all things consulting. He is a consultant himself, and so he has clients that he works with week in and week out, and is amazing in that arena. But he also is the one who supports all of our, what we call guides, or our consultants here at Giant. And so this half hour is for you, and it's just chock full of wisdom and tips and hacks and all kinds of things. So that's who we are. And then Chris, go ahead and introduce Bronson.
Yeah, so Bronson is our CEO of Giant and heads up our team. We just had our bi-weekly kind of powwow this morning, which was great. And just not just oversees the direction of what we're doing from a platform and technology, but really the vision and the perspective of why we're doing it. We spent quite a bit of time this morning just focusing on that. Why are we doing what we're doing, and the importance of the vision behind that and the intent, not just the technology and the content. And so I'm excited to have Bronson with us today. I've asked him to come in and really spend some time focusing on the Invincible operating system. This is something that is somewhat new within Giant. It represents a lot of what we've been doing for quite a while, but in a way that's probably much more powerful than it ever has been. And so I said, we've kind of talked around in this idea of Invincible for weeks now. It would actually be good just to have the man himself come in and talk more details. So I'm going to hand the mic off to him. But before we do that, just want to encourage you, if you haven't already, let us know that you're here. Wherever you're tuning in from, on Giant, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, let us know that you're here, where you're tuning in from. And then if you have any comments or questions at any point, we will absolutely stop here in a little while and pause to be able to address those. But don't feel like you have to wait for us to pause to do that. Feel free to drop those in to the comments at any point. Bronson?
Yeah, awesome. Well, first, thanks for inviting me onto your live stream. And second, I'm accustomed to doing live streams with Mike Opedal, our president, and he speaks so much faster than either of you all that when we started, I'm like, whoa, we're talking at a normal rate. This is unique. So
that's awesome.
When you watch our live stream, it's just like chaos in words. So this is fun, a different gear, different change of pace. So to start with what I want to talk about, we're going to get to the Invincible operating system, and you'll understand hopefully what that is by the end today. But it doesn't start with the Invincible operating system. It starts with pain. You're here because you're a coach or a consultant. You're someone who is trying to build a business and trying to serve your clients. And we understand your pain. And the Invincible operating system is really to address some of that pain. So I want to read off some of these questions, and you can just think to yourself, does this resonate with you as a coach or consultant? How do I create predictable revenue? If you're like a lot of coach consultants, it's feast or famine. You land a big deal, then you lose a big deal, and it's hard to have predictability in your revenue. Or how do I find new clients? It's tough to get new people in the boat, to get new clients. What is the best content to teach? So let's say you actually land a client. What do you teach them? There's so many books. There's so many possible programs. Everyone online has some version of something you can teach. What's the best content to teach? Does everyone feel like an imposter? Imposter syndrome is real. You are in front of a group of people, you're in the room, and you're the coach, you're the consultant, and you're supposed to deliver the goods. But there's a small little voice in your head saying, am I really the one with the answer? Do I really have what it takes? Do I know what I'm talking about? Are these people smarter than me? Are they going to see through me? And Invincible operating system addresses that. It allows you to have that confidence, but we'll get to that later. How can I charge more for my services? There's a way to package the same thing in such a way that you can make more from it. And so we'll talk about that. How do I prove my worth to my clients? You want to make sure they know what you're really bringing to the table. How do I even get started? Sometimes it's even hard to get your business going. And then how often should I engage with my clients? What rhythm should you be using as you deliver your services? So these are some of the pains that you might be feeling. And some of these pains will be addressed by the Invincible operating system. And that's why I wanted to start there. You know, as I teach coaches and consultants how to think about their business, here's what I try to say. It all comes down to two things. You're either getting clients or keeping clients. That's it. We can overcomplicate it if we want to, and we can act like there's more to it than that. But at the end of the day, if you get clients and you keep clients, you're probably going to build a six-figure revenue business with your coaching and consulting. And so really all of the pains that you could experience, a lot of the pains on that last slide, it really comes down to getting clients or keeping clients. If we can solve those pains, then we're really helping you. And so here's the transitions that I like to talk about. In terms of getting clients, you make a transition from asking to attracting, from getting to giving, and from high touch to hybrid. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm not going to get into any of that today. So we're not going to talk about client acquisition, and I'm not going to talk about those three transitions. But I am going to talk about keeping clients today, because this is really where the Invincible operating system shines. So in terms of keeping clients, we're going to make a transition mentally from qualitative to quantitative, from teaching to transforming, and from random to recurring. So in terms of keeping clients, this is the Invincible operating system. I think the best way to keep the clients you have is to implement the Invincible operating system with your clients. And what the Invincible operating system is its three core components. It is an assessment, it is a toolkit, and it is a process. So first, the idea of an assessment is you don't just go into a new client and start delivering teaching. You don't just start doing workshops. First, you have to assess what is the current health of their teams and where are the growth opportunities. And so you don't just go in and start doing stuff. That's what rookies do. You first assess what the real needs are, then you know what to address. The second thing is you address those low scores in the assessment with a toolkit. So instead of lecturing, instead of talking, instead of being the sage on the stage, you use really powerful visual tools that can be remembered long after you leave the room, and use that toolkit to really improve those low scores in the assessment. But then the third piece, which is really important, is the process. There's a process of when to teach the toolkit and who you're going to teach it to in the right settings so that it really maximizes your input. So when you put those three things together, you assess current reality and find growth opportunities. You use a toolkit of visual tools that are very powerful and can change behaviors. And you do that using a process so that everyone gets the right experience at the right time to really improve those scores. When you put those three things together, That's how you keep a client. That's how you look like a rock star as a coach or a consultant. So I'm going to get into each of those for just a moment. I'm going to talk about the assessment, the toolkit, and the process, and how it's really going to help your coaching and consulting business come alive. So let's start with the idea of moving from qualitative to quantitative. So we're talking about the assessment. So I have two kinds of consultants in my mind when I teach. I have the struggling consultant on one side, and I have the six-figure consultant on the other side. The struggling consultant is what we don't want to be, right? We've all been there. We felt it. We know what it's like. We don't want to be there. We want to be in the six-figure consultant category. So the struggling consultant, one of the reasons they struggle, they don't benchmark reality with data, right? So they don't have that assessment. They come in and they just start teaching, but they don't really know what current reality is. And they don't know where to focus their energy. Everything is possible. Therefore, they probably put their energy in the wrong spot because they don't really know where to focus. They don't know where the leverage points are for that team or that organization. And here's the thing, they can't prove progress. When the finance department is ready to cut you and say, we're not going to have your services any longer, you can't go to them with data and say, well, actually, you should think twice. The scores were here and now they're here. I've improved you. I've helped your teams be more productive. I can show it with data. And so you don't know where to focus, but you also can't prove progress. And if you're effective, it's really accidental. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. That doesn't mean the clock is right. Yeah, you can go in and randomly start teaching stuff, and you'll be right sometimes. Every once in a while, they'll say, wow, that was really great. That's exactly what we needed. But when you benchmark reality with data by using an assessment, it's not accidentally effective. You can actually be more intentional about it. And on the flip side, from a struggling consultant is a six-figure consultant. They do benchmark reality with data, and that allows them to identify growth opportunities, which allows them to easily demonstrate progress, and then they are intentionally effective, right? And so this is the first component of the Invincible operating system, is what we call our assessment. We teach our coaches and consultants to go into organizations, and the first thing they do is assess current reality on 5 key areas: communication, relationships, alignment, execution, capacity. And the reason it's called the Invincible operating system is because we want to create invincible teams throughout the organization. And an invincible team scores high in all of these categories. So when you go in and you start benchmarking reality against these 5 things, then you know where to focus. You can say, oh, relationships is why this team is performing poorly, so let's focus on relationships. Or capacity is why this team is performing poorly. If you take a team and they are scoring high in all these categories, you have really done something for them. And so the first piece of the Invincible operating system is having an assessment. And I'll go ahead and say this. If you don't use our assessment, you need to come up with your own. Don't go into a client and just start, puking information. You have to have some kind of data-based assessment that you use. All right, the second piece, though, is really going from teaching to transforming. And this is where the toolkit comes in. Here's what a struggling consultant does. First, they don't have visuals. Everything is text-based. It's based on books. It's based on speaking, right? They don't have visuals. And we know that visuals are what people actually remember. They don't remember your long monologue. They remember the visuals. So a struggling consultant doesn't have that. And they speak too much, right? If you are the sage on the stage, it may give you a boost of confidence, and you may feel like you're awesome for doing it, but when it's over, they don't really remember what you were saying if you're speaking for 30, 45 minutes, an hour or more. Also, when you leave the room, what you said is quickly forgotten, right? They may like you, they may think you're smart, but they don't actually remember what you said. And what that means is what you didn't transform the organization. But in contradistinction to that, look at the six-figure consultant. They have strong visuals. They don't rely on speaking too much. They ask questions to really pull out from others what they're learning and what they're seeing in the visuals. And what they do will never be forgotten, and it will transform the organization. So the same way that an assessment is pivotal, I would say that having strong visual tools is also pivotal if you really want to keep your clients in your coaching and consulting business. Here's what we have. We have a toolkit. It has over 60 visual tools based on neurolinguistics that allows us to go into organizations and really change the way they think by giving them these visual tools that stay in their brain forever. This is one of our more popular tools. It's called the Support Challenge Matrix. I'm not going to go into teaching it right now, but essentially, if you were to teach this tool in 5 minutes to an organization, they would never forget it. They would talk about it forever. They would have the Support Challenge Matrix language as a part of their culture. It would be their common, language that they use when they talk about these things. And they would remember, oh, you're the coach or consultant that brought that tool. You're the coach or consultant that gave us these strong visuals that we still reference to this day. So you need an assessment. You need a toolkit, right? That's what six-figure consultants do. And then lastly, a struggling consultant, everything's random, and we want to make the transition from random to recurring, right? And this is where the process is going to come into play. So first, let's talk about the struggling consultant. The struggling consultant, there's no rhythm of delivery. Everything's kind of haphazard. It's like you wake up every Monday and you're like, maybe I'll deliver this experience to that client, and maybe I'll do this workshop to that client. Oh, and maybe next month we can do this, or maybe next year we can do this. But there's no pre-thought delivery rhythm to the whole thing. And it's focused on events. It's usually let's fill a room with a bunch of people and let's talk at them. It's an event that's a one-time thing instead of it being a cycle, a repeatable cycle that you can do year-round. Also, the struggling consultant doesn't create recurring revenue, because when you focus on one-time events, oh, let's do this one big event in January, and then we'll do this other big event maybe next year. When you focus on these events, there's no reason for you to charge them every month. And so you don't create that predictable revenue that we talked about in that pain slide. And then lastly, this doesn't build confidence in the client organization. What I mean is this: when you come in and you don't have a rhythm of delivery, everything's just an event, you don't have a real plan, then they don't look at you as somebody to put confidence in. But here's the other side of that coin. The six-figure consultant, they come in with a scheduled plan. They can say to an organization, when an organization says, well, what are we going to do with you? How's it going to work? You can say, well, I'm going to do this every week. I'm going to do this every month. I'm going to do this every quarter. I'm going to do this every year. I have a scheduled plan. And it's not around events. It's a cycle. So every year you can follow that cycle and know that you're going to improve their scores on that assessment using the toolkit. So it focuses on a cycle. It creates recurring revenue. You can then say, I charge X amount every month to run this process inside your organization. And what that does is it builds a massive amount of confidence, because you come in with a real plan, with a real annual cycle. You're giving them a reason to pay you monthly, and they really just have confidence in what you do. The same way that we have an assessment and that we have a toolkit, we also have a process. We know what you should do inside an organization to really keep that client. We have a couple one-time events, the 5 Voice Bootcamp, the Team Kickstart, and the rest of them are things you do on a cycle. So we know that every week there should be some kind of individual training on demand using our platform. We know that every month there should be leader coaching, where you talk about difficult situations they're going through and what they need to really help their people. Once a month, there should be team exercises where you take whatever the lowest score is and do an exercise with that team to help improve that score. Once a quarter, you should retake the Invincible assessment, because just taking it once doesn't matter. Scores change, people change, teams change. So we take that assessment every quarter so that we're always working off the best version of current reality. And then lastly, every year, there's a people summit where we can really decide, does the strategy of the team fit the people that we now have on that team? And so I know that's kind of like drinking from a fire hydrant. I know I just gave you a lot of information, but now you really do see this is what the Invincible operating system is. It is an assessment, it's a toolkit, and it's a process. Struggling consultants and struggling coaches, they don't use assessments. They just go in and start teaching stuff. Struggling consultants don't have a toolkit. It's all verbal. It's all text. It's boring. It's not remembered by them. And struggling consultants don't have a process. Everything's random. Let's try this. Let's try that. Oh, I listened to a podcast. They recommended doing this. Everything's just haphazard. But on the other hand, the six-figure consultant, they start their engagements with an assessment. Let's figure out the current reality of your teams and your organization, and then let's focus on the low-scoring areas. The six-figure consultant has a toolkit. They don't drone on and on. They have strong visual tools that can be remembered. And they have a proven process for when to teach those tools and who to teach those tools to. So I'm going to stop right there and bring back on the co-host here, Chris and Tracy. We can take questions. You guys can add some of your insights to that. I know that was a lot of information. So Chris, over to you.
Yeah, and if anybody does have questions, if you're tuning in, please go ahead and just drop those into the comments. We'd love to answer any questions based on what Bronson just shared. I've got a question for you, Bronson. Pieces of everything that you just walked through have been part of Giant since day one. Right. I mean, we've been doing, this isn't new. We've been doing consulting for a long time, and elements of that. Why, talk about the why behind the operating system, because that is relatively new. Why did we personally, as a consulting technology company, move away from, we had all of that there. Why did we create the Invincible operating system in the first place?
Yeah, no, that's great. So it really came down to trying to help our new guides and our new consultants figure out what our OGs have always known, right? There was always this gap. When you first come into the ecosystem, you don't really know what to do. So you don't know what's the first best event to do with somebody. You don't know what the cycle should look like. And so you kind of had to figure it out on your own. And so we actually went to some of the people that have been around Giant for a long time. They have large clients. They've done a lot of work. And so, for instance, we went to Maria Guy and we said, what do you think is the first best thing you could do with a client? She's like, 5 voices. She's like, it has to be 5 voice dynamics. She goes, that's where I start. That is what unlocks a lot. And we're like, oh, we didn't know that. That's great. So we thought, okay, let's shop that around. So we went to some other consultants and we said, do you think a 5 voice dynamics based experience is the best starting point? And over they said, yeah, that's exactly where you should start. That's exactly it. And Mike and I actually had a different first spot to start. And we learned like, no, that's where the best consultants start. So we're like, okay, well, what do you do next? And then we start, shopping that around and talking to people that have really been doing this inside of organizations. And they said, the next thing you need to do is figure out where the dissatisfaction is, figure out what they want to change inside that team. So we're like, okay, great. So is that a good time to assess that team? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So then we came up with a team kickstart. And so really it was just through talking to the people that have been around for years who have built really stout businesses and trying to build out of that an operating system that others can use right out of the gate without needing 5 or 10 years of experience to figure it out, right? So you're absolutely right, Chris. All this stuff was laying around. I mean, the stuff you see in the process, the stuff you see in the toolkit, the stuff you see in the assessment, very little or almost none of it is new. What's new is the codification, actually putting it together in a system that can be learned and implemented by somebody who's new. So when you come into our ecosystem, if you're watching this and you want to become a guide or a consultant with Giant, you're going to learn how to use this operating system. So it's going to fast forward your career 10 years because you don't have to be Dan Fry with 10 years of consulting under your belt to figure this out. You can be whoever you are in month 2 of your career and really get a leg up on the competition. So does that kind of answer the question, Chris?
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew the answer before you said it, but just to get it out there and share, because there's, I think that's important for us to say, why would we adjust? Why would we change something that we've been doing that was very successful? And you hit it spot on. And I think too, when you talk about the, Dan Fry's, if you weren't with us, last month, Dan Fry, who was our top consultant in 2019, kind of unpacked his wisdom of saying, here's what I've learned to be successful. Maria Guy, I don't know what number she is, but she's definitely top 5, and what consultants, like when you bring those voices in, there's a lot of value. But as working with guides and consultants, part of my struggle has always been people would hear Dan share what Dan does really well, or they would hear Maria and what Maria does really well. And then they would go out there and just try to do the exact same thing. And what we struggle with that was say, well, wait a second, like Maria's been doing this for a while, right? Like there's a reason she does it that way. She didn't always do it that way, especially when she first started out. That's not the way she did it at all. And she's doing it that way because that's kind of her market, right? Like you have to figure, we kept saying you got to do Giant your way, but you have to understand where to start. But we weren't necessarily helping them get out of the gates well. And so we finally said, you know what? I love that. Going to the people that have been successful and asking what's been impactful. How do we systematize that in a way that makes it very fluid and easy, especially for newer guides and consultants to come in and do it? And what we know is if you're tuning into this, chances are you're probably not new. Like some of you are, some of you may be doing consulting for the very first time because of COVID, right? Because you kind of forced into, okay, I thought about doing this for years. I guess this is now the time, right? But a lot of people, have well-established businesses, but they still enjoy what Giant does and represents. And when we can help them say, well, here's how Giant does it, and here's why Giant has been so successful, and we've built the system so that you can replicate that and invite you into that. I think that's where, that's where the true power kind of rides in.
Absolutely. You want to hear something interesting, Chris? Take somebody like Dan, who helped inform the operating system by teaching us what he did with his clients. And then when the operating system was done, it actually helped him because it really codified what he was doing, but in some ways a clearer way. And so it's a reflexive equilibrium. They informed it, and then it informs them. And so they're actually getting new engagements and larger engagements because of the language around the operating system, and to be able to really go in with that confidence and say, look, it's an assessment, it's a toolkit, it's a process. I want to roll it out to more of your people within this organization. And so it is really cool to see the legs that it has by just simplifying what Giant, in a sense, has always known and done, but really just making it clear.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love seeing some of our veterans, you say OG, it's kind of original Giants, right? They've been around for a long time, and it's just this new stuff that's happening. And I think it's because in a lot of ways, it's hard when you walk in and it's just you, right? When you're representing yourself, or you're representing a company that, it's hard to do that. It's much easier to come in and say, we collectively have found success all over the world working with, Fortune 100 companies all the way to mom and pop shops, and the same system works. Now, obviously what it looks like for a, Fortune 100 and what it looks like for mom and pop, how you do it is going to look differently. But we do the same thing, right? We do the exact same thing. So if you're coming in and you're just going, I'm looking for a place to begin because this is all new to me and I want to partner with somebody, or if you're someone that's a little bit more established, that's just looking, kind of feeling out, okay, I like Giant. I like what I see with Giant. I've kind of looked around on the platform with my free account. But how do you work with coaches and consultants? Here's what I would invite you to do. Just go to the URL that's on the side. We tell you this every week. Go to giantworldwide.com/accelerate. Accelerate is our program and product to be able to support consultants and coaches as they build their businesses. Click that blue schedule info call button. You can find some information that's on the page, but I really invite you to connect with someone on our team. I guarantee you it's low pressure and they'll be able to answer your questions. And if Giant's not the right fit, we're going to be the first one to tell you that. When you come in as a coach within the Giant system, you get access to everything that Bronson just talked through. You get access to Invincible to leverage with clients. You get access to the assessment so that you're actually working from concrete data and pinpointing real issues that you can help them with. You get access to the 60 plus, visual tools in our toolkit that can help them to be able to grow. And you get access to this ongoing repeatable process that is sustainable and scalable, both for you as a business and for those that you work with. And I would love to be able to talk and see if that's a fit that we can help support you in that. And then we do this every week. Again, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. You can come in, spend about a half an hour with us, And next week, I can't wait. We did this last month. It was a great session with Dan Fry, who was one of our top consultants. Maria is another one of those OGs, as Bronson put it, that's been around for a long time, very successful, top 5 probably with our consulting last year, every year. She's going to be spending some time with us next Tuesday to share her best advice. What I've asked her to say is, hey, if you had 15, 20 minutes with maybe some new consultants that are out there trying to build their businesses, based on what you've learned and where you found success, what's some of the best advice that you can give them? And she's going to share that next Tuesday afternoon. You're welcome to tune in and view it on LinkedIn or Facebook like you are, but I would encourage you to actually go to giant.tv/free account, sign up for an account so that you can watch this on the platform, because this is only one of many, many, many other live streams that are going on. Tracy, what's the next live stream that we've got this week that they could tune into after this one?
Yeah, so actually Friday, we're kind of on a break for a couple of them this time, but Friday you can catch 2 live streams. Steve Cochran has the Personality Yoda, which is just always fantastic. And then at 12 o'clock Eastern, Jeremy and Steve, our 2 founders, have the Founders live stream. So you wouldn't want to miss that one either.
Yep, that's great. I think we're up to 6 live streams right now, and we're about to add a 7th here in the very short order. Yeah. So
I'll give you more info shortly, but yeah, something fun's coming.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So that's why you want a free account. It doesn't cost anything. That's why you want to go to giant.tv so that you can have easy access to all of that, as well as everything else that is on the platform. Bronson, before we hop off, I'm going to give you the final word. What would be your encouragement to somebody who's out there trying to do this in this season, especially? Just what can we do to encourage them as they go about their week this week?
Yeah, early in my career, I thought the goal was to be original and to be creative and to do everything on my own. And I realized that good artists copy, great artists steal. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel with your consulting business. We've already figured it out. We have hundreds of consultants and coaches working in thousands of organizations. We know it works. We know it doesn't. One of our consultants actually said, this is the wheel I've been trying to invent my entire life, right? So you could go and create your own assessment, but why? Right? You could go and try to create your own visual tools, but why? You could go and try to create your own process, but why? That is years of work. And let's be honest, you probably don't have the skill set to do each of those 3 well. I know I don't, right? I could do a little bit of some of them. I couldn't put all 3 together, but Giant as an organization has already figured out a really good assessment and a really good toolkit and a really good process. And I can't imagine going into any organization missing one of those 3 components after having learned about them. I mean, imagine going in and not assessing current reality. Like, what are we doing? Like, how would you even start? Imagine going in and saying, I'm just going to drone on and talk, and I'm not going to give strong visual tools they can remember. Like, why? That's such a waste. Or imagine saying, there's no process. Everything's going to be haphazard and random, and we're just going to do whatever comes to our mind that week. It's like, why? What a missed opportunity. So now that there has to be an assessment, a toolkit, and a process, are you going to go and reinvent the wheel and try to discover fire again? Or do you just want to partner with us? I mean, we want to help you. We want to give you so much to build your business that there's no bonus points for difficulty. There's no bonus points for originality. There's no bonus points for you being super creative and reinventing everything we've already invented and wasting 10 years doing it. Just come partner with us and let's do this thing.
That's awesome.
There you go. From the most quotable man I know, I think. I got several of those in there. Bronson, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.